Here's the thing.
Yes.
This is why we're doing an experimental thing. All Spirit Radio is an experimental thing to try and solve this problem that you've just laid out.
Expand on that.
Well, for instance, I don't tell anybody what job they should be doing. People make their own jobs, and that's the way it should be, because everybody has a desire in them to do something, and it has a contributory effect to the whole, because we don't realize that we're part of a greater thing. We just feel that we're individuals and we do what we do. But in our, I like doing this and I like doing that, all of those, little loves and likes, they all come together to produce the you that is the piece of the puzzle. And I don't know, it's like, right. So what I'm trying to put across is the idea that I know that everything will work. And given, as long as I'm not impatient with it, everything will fall into place, and the right people with the right skills will fall into the right, holes that have been made by a need. Does that make sense? It's
yes,
not that,
yeah.
And that's what I call natural organization. And what you're talking about is corporate organization, because when you organize, you have to file papers, you have to register with tax. Tax? Hey, I thought that was illegal. Anyway, all this BS that we do when we organize, you have to have a chairman, a secretary, and a treasurer. You have to do the 1, 2, 3 thing, the old Masonic thing. And it's all, they're basically training this organization to, fit in with the Masonic, world. Whereas we don't have a chairman, treasurer. We don't have that sort of BS because we work holographically. We know what we're all supposed to be doing. We know what we like to do. We know where we fit in with the whole group. So we just do what we do and everything works. That's
as you were explaining that, what came to mind was the difference is that we don't have an agenda. We're just here to kind of do our own thing. We don't have any real agenda.
That's the agenda.
That's
the agenda. That's the plan.
Yeah, and whereas anytime you have an organization that we're talking about with the bureaucratic, tendencies to get to a point where they can't move, they always have an agenda.
Yeah, and it's never it's never to anybody's benefit. I've just been playing the last part of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know if anybody caught that.
Yes, I did. I laughed.
It's great, isn't it? There's so many, parallels with what's going on today, the whole EU business and all this stuff with the Vogon planet and, how awfully bureaucratic they are. And, they were completely trained to be bureaucratic and not to have not to have an individual thought. Look where that gets them. They just end up being like bulldozer drivers. And, it's a really interesting show. It's really, it's a comedy, but I'm reading Alex Collier at the same time and saying, hang on, these things it's like Douglas Adams knew stuff. He was receiving information somehow.
Well, the collective consciousness will feed certain, I'm convinced that the collective consciousness, some of these people are just picking up on a thread, and so they might be into a thread of somebody who knows a lot more than we know. And it gets into books and fiction. And it's sort of like if you watch this stuff and you're watching it not because you're buying into anything except just watching what the thread of the story is. Sometimes I hear things in a movie that is a trashy movie, but I go, oh my God, that feels like the real thought, the real truth got in there somehow.
There's always a little bit of disclosure, and there's always a 23.
What is it with the 23?
Didn't you? I had a little discourse about that the other day. every TV show, that has an Illuminati disclosure in it, every TV show that has, like, every news show, if you look at the news, every news show will mention 23 at one point. And you might think, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Well, that's quite coincidental. Funny that. First it was like the newsreader was, standing in front of wharf number 23 and a great big 23 written on the side of the building, or something like that. And it'll appear in every news program and in every sci-fi show. There'll be like 23 people were injured when stuff like that. Have you noticed that?
No, I haven't. But what do you suppose 2-3 means?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot that it means. And, whether it is 2-3 or 24 minus 1, like there's a certain, maybe it's an octave kind of thing. A 24 note cycle octave thing. Who knows? But, 23 does seem to show up, when you've got, some form of, I don't know, is it illusion or revelation? It's hard to say. Has anybody else seen this? Has anybody else noticed this? I started reading about this in the, Robert Anton Wilson trilogy, Illuminati. Have you read that?
No. Is it fiction or nonfiction? Or a combination of both? Fictionalized fact, I like to say.
Yeah, faction. But it's, it's a cross between, it's a boys' novel. There's a lot of soft porn in it. But it's about like the Atlantean, wizards that are still hiding underground, that are still operative and, manipulating the whole world behind the scenes. And a guy with a submarine.
It has a 23 on it.
Yeah. Well, here's the weird thing. As I was reading this book, and it was talking at the beginning about 23s, and I was thinking, wow, this character, I really like him. He seems a lot like me. I kind of identify. And now I look at his name, and his name is Saul Goodman. Right? My mother's maiden name was Goodman, and her name was Paula. So Paul and Saul was like one person in the Bible, wasn't it? So that was all really weird. And I had this realization. Do you know what? You'll never guess which page I was on when I had that thought.
23.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah. Funny that.
I will start to watch that.
Check out 23. It's a really unusual thing. I mean, there's websites. There'll be websites all over the place about 23. But, there's this, 23 Skidoo. And again, it's a dynamic number. It's 2 against 3. And 2 against 3 is always like, a very interesting polyrhythmic, stuff when you got music. It's also, powers of 2 and powers of 3 create the musical scale as by Pythagoras and all that stuff. So, it's a gift that keeps going. You keep, coming up with new ideas about 23 when you think about it, and so it's a fountain of creativity.
Well, now that we've got you here, and you being Scotland, which is part of the, United Kingdom, you guys voted to leave the EU too? I mean, was the total, I mean, you're Scotland, did you guys?
Listen, all right. We always know here on Wolf Spirit Radio that what people see in the news is nothing compared with what is really going on. All right? What we're seeing is the effect of what Rothschild is talking about, what Fulford is talking about. What we're seeing is, now, it could be a complete, that everything's planned, and that Brexit was just like a kind of excuse to unzip the whole world, unzip all the federation of the world so that they can be refederated into one single solid, powerful world administration, government, new world order. It could all be part of the plan, and that we're all being taken for a ride. But whether you voted for Brexit or not, that's what happens because Brexit creates, as you say, Texit and, Califexit and all these, what was it? They had a whole bunch of them. Portugal, I don't know, I can't remember them. But anyway, the idea really, from my perspective here, is to turn the middle class against the working class. Now, I bet you weren't expecting that. It's class war. And it's creating civil war.
Was that the way the vote fell? Was that the working class voted one way and the middle class voted the other way?
Yes.
And why is there a working class and a middle class? Wasn't the working class the middle class?
Used to be.
No. They're like, when we say working class, we're talking the people who do things, who make stuff. The middle class are the people who talk about stuff and think about things. But they don't actually make things.
And that must be a British thing because here.
Yeah, well, this, and then you have the upper class. You have the military class.
Right.
And they're, the military class, they serve the nobles, who are their own class. So there's the nobles, and then there's their minions, the middle classes, and the slaves, who are the working classes. And they set the minions against the slaves, so that the slaves don't revolt against the nobles. Make sense? That's British society in a nutshell.
So the working class voted to get out?
Yes, because the working class reads certain newspapers and has certain attitudes and are subjected to a lot of pressure, which causes them to want to find a reason for why their pressure is so bad, and then they are forced to look at, well, it's the immigrants, it's this, it's that. And so the idea of foreigners and people from outside taking control of our country and all of that stuff is very scary, and that fear has been whipped up a lot. Whereas the middle class, now remember, they're the minions of the upper class, and they're also the businessmen, and the businessmen, all the successful businessmen, they're all Masons. And guess what? The EU is a Masonic idea, and so of course they're going to support it. Now, I just want to say one thing. When I was 9 years old, the then Prime Minister, his name was Edward Heath. I didn't like him, and I didn't like what they were doing, and he brought us into what was called the common market then. And it was a tiptoe, it was a totalitarian tiptoe. Oh, we're going to join together, we'll be able to trade with each other. It's always these trade treaties and trade deals that are the whole New World Order thing. And I remember I didn't like it at the time. And I was only 9, so I couldn't vote or anything. And ever since then, nothing that I've ever supported has ever, I've never voted for the winning team, so to speak. So I got no, I got no faith in democracy for me, effectively, and so in these years as they've gone by, I've seen our involvement in the EU get worse and worse and worse. But still, I get the feeling that, Britain is being, the people of Britain, not Britain itself, but the people of Britain are being treated like this Belgian sex slave who's been held in a dungeon for 40 years. And, we have just said, no, we don't want this anymore. Or it feels like we have just said this. But it could all be, manipulated. Because we know that they are all on both sides. They're both sides of the divide. See, you have red and blue, and in your country, red means, red is the color for, your Republicans, which is the right wing, which is the, conservative. And your blue, that's the Democrats, who is supposedly the socialists and the liberals. But in Britain, it's the other way around. You know, the reds are the lefties, the left wing, and the blues are the right wing. So it really is completely arbitrary. It's just a game that they play with us as the players. So you see, they're all whipping up storms to try and distract us to say, oh, look, it's over there. Oh, look, it's over there. Whereas we really need to stop. Realize that all right, so here's my big bugbear. The middle class people are blaming the working class people for being stupid and racist, right? Because they voted for Britain to leave the EU. And so what these people are doing, they are actually defending a superstate against real people. And, brothers and sisters, we have to be very, very careful at this point. You realize what's going on here, don't you, Nancy, Colleen? Can you see that?
Yeah, well,
what is happening?
It's definitely, time to make a choice, time to either wake up or just, ignore it and let it play out.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then you're just a pawn. Now, to me, I totally understand what you're saying, but I also will not underestimate the powers of the human mind, the human being. I think many, many people are waking up much more than the dark side would like. And every time they attempt to do one of these things to get more control, it blows up in their face. I mean, it's taken, a very long time for 9/11, 15 years, to blow up in their face. And it's in the process of doing so. I mean, now more and more people are saying, well, of course it was an inside job. But the problem always becomes is that as we wake up, what the hell can we do about what they're doing?
Well, here's the thing. We need to be able to say, oh, Orlando, well, that's obviously an inside job. Look at it. It's just so badly made. Who do they take us for? Until the people say it in real time, we're not there yet.
Well, it's it's very close to real time.
Getting close. It's getting close. Now, my Crown-based transmissions, I've had a long conversation with them, obviously, for over the years, but they did say, there's going to be one of these false flags that is going to be so patently obvious as to what was really going on, because people inside it have been waking up. People in the operatives who are doing it are waking up and seeing what's there and somehow sabotage it in their own way.
Well, that's interesting because on Say What, or maybe it was Dolly's show, we got to talking about, no, I think it was on, another one, it was on World Talk, that Jan brought it up, Jan Moore. She brought up the concept of, okay, we've got people waking up all over the place. Are they waking up in that third tier, the people that are actually, the keeping it together? Are they waking up? And yes, that seems to be it. And my example of that was Snowden, because he was in a place that only one person could see this niche in the whole security system of NSA. And it was him. And he's able to be the sort of person that says, wow, now that I've got this, I'm going to give it away. I mean, it took a special person to have been there to the point that it looks like it's orchestrated. So I do think that a lot of light workers were actually manipulated by their own lives to be in very key positions right now. And that's what I'm hoping is that what you just alluded to is that people are going to start waking up at the points where they can do something. We're on the outside. We need the inside to start waking up, and then it all crumbles. That's what.
Yeah. But the thing is that, imagine you wake up one morning and, for the last 15 years, you've been dancing the totalitarian two-step with, sort of totalitarian tiptoe with all of your co-workers. And suddenly you realize, perhaps like, Avril Darman 30 years ago, 60 years ago, may have suddenly woken up and realized, oh my God, we've actually been overtaken by an evil organization we didn't even notice. And they're then going into all sorts of weird things going on. And so here we are again. We don't realize what has happened around us. The world has turned into a fascist empire around us, and we haven't even noticed.
Well, a lot of us did notice. A lot of us screaming for a very long time.
And I tell you, these things, these TV shows like Big Brother, and X Factor, they're all completely Nazi in their idealism.
Yep.
You know, Big Brother, you've got no privacy. Anybody can look at what you're doing. You can see you picking your nose and all this stuff. No. And X Factor, you know, everybody is liable to be judged by this terrible man, this man that everybody's scared of. No wonder he's a complete pedo. But anyway, alleged. Anyway, so so they exemplify this, and I would say it's highly satanic. You know, this whole, judgment, and because everybody joins in, you know, look at that terrible person, and, you know, isn't he a bad judge? And, it's such a distraction. It's such a waste of good emotions. We should be using these emotions for doing fine, projects, but instead we're wasting it on being, on fighting against each other, because we've been told that blue over there is bad and red over here is good. And it's both sides have been told the same thing.
It's the old brown-eyed, blue-eyed thing.
Yeah.
That, when they took the kids and told them that you got blue eyes, so you're better than everybody else. And then, you know, the next day they said, you got the brown eyes. I told you a lie yesterday. You're really the best ones. And the psychology that went down with these kids, fascinating. It's the blue.
What happened?
Well, what happened was that I'm surprised you haven't heard about it. It was an American teacher who had a classroom, and she was trying to teach them about prejudice. And so she just told them this one day that all the blue-eyed people come to the front of the room. The brown-eyed people are not as good as the blue-eyed people. And within a short period of time, the blue-eyed people started picking on the brown-eyed people. The brown-eyed kids became very submissive. And then when they reversed it around, the opposite happened. Now the brown-eyed people became aggressive towards the blue-eyed people. And they've actually done follow-ups. You can probably find it on the net, I'm sure. They've done follow-ups with the kids that were involved in that experiment. And it's very eye-opening as to, you know, what
Are they all members of the KKK now?
No. It changed their lives forever, because they could see how easily they were duped. You know, and as adults, it was like, whoa, you know, just because somebody told me because my eyes were blue that, you know, I mean, they really got into.
Yeah. So let's have a look at this, because, you know, there's always these little things that are dropped into the meme factory. One of these is the rhesus negative blood group. Do you know all about this?
I know some stuff, but I'm not sure I know what you're saying now.
All right. Well, there's this thing, right? Some people drop these things and say, well, 15% of the population are not susceptible to mind control. And then other people will say, well, 15% of the population, 15% of the population has rhesus negative. So maybe this 15% is the same as the other 15%. So rhesus negative people, and, you know, and the memes go on, and they feed off each other and bounce off each other. And then suddenly, eventually, you know, rhesus negative people can't be mind controlled. They're extraterrestrial. They're better. They're healthier. They're this, they're that. And I just call a whole load of bull crap on that. Really.
Does sound like bullcrap to me too.
Smells like bullcrap. Tastes like bullcrap.
I thank you for dropping in. We're at the top of the hour. I really appreciate you dropping in.
Because you said help, Wool Spirit, help.
Yeah.
And since I'm no longer with Nikki, I have such great amounts of spare time. I'm actually tidying my house up. I actually washed my floor this morning. Well, anyway, so.
How's the cat doing? How's the cat doing?
The cat escaped.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh, well, she's died. but I don't think she's died because she'd smell. But the cat escaped. And, she's living a happy life because, that cat is half wild anyway. If she gets picked up, they'll scan her and then they'll probably send her back to me because, the cat place is just a couple of streets away. Anyhow, yeah, so now, I've been, walking around, closing all the doors, closing all the windows. The cat could have left about 4 weeks ago. I have no idea.
Yeah, because all you were hearing was the voice, and it was like, then the voice stopped.
Then the voice stopped and then there's smells. And it's like she was communicating with me on a very smell level, right? Like she could actually waft a smell of poo my way. It was quite incredible. You stand anywhere else in the room, you can't smell it. You sit in my chair. It's like, how the hell did she do that? Anyway. Chemical warfare. It's like skunk. Maybe she's a skunk. She's a half skunk. All right, sweethearts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, audience, everybody out there. Sorry you didn't show up, Walt, but, power is power. Turn it off. It was not going to work. Everybody have a great week. Be safe. Tomorrow we will be on with World Talk and, Nora Willow will be on with the Moors again. We're going to talk, Agenda 21. You know anything about that, Jay?
Agenda 21. Well, again, this is part of the EU. You see, it's called the sustainability thing, and basically it gives people money for joining in the whole carbon tax scam. And people buy into global warming because of this Agenda 21, because it means if you believe in it, they'll give you money. Honestly. We can go into this, but that's part of, is part of why the EU is so evil.
Well, if you're up and about tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, which is early time Pacific, and you're listening to us, come on.
Yeah, okay. If I've not got any sessions on, I'm getting some, lots of good sessions recently, the work is getting quicker and deeper and more effective. This soul defragmentation is really good. So, Ever Beyond Radio, folks, it's great. So thank you very much for, letting me in there and, I'll shut up. I did have a coffee earlier. This is part of it. It was a really good coffee. It was very strong. So,
did you get a thermos yet? You gotta get a thermos.
No, I still got these little candle powered things that, keep it warm from underneath.
Yeah, but that keeps cooking it. That's why you get
That's why it gets horrible, yeah.
Okay, just get the thermos and keep it warm all day. No heat. Thank you again. Colleen, it's all yours. Be safe, everybody. We'll see you next week. Or hopefully tomorrow. And then Jay's on.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Nora is apparently coming along this week to my house, and by all rights, she will be accompanying me on the 6-hour Thursday, for you guys, Thursday afternoon, journeys with Andronicus, and we're going to do some full spectrum science, and Sean David Morton show. So we'll have 6 hours with Nora in the studio here.
She's going to be your co-host. That's excellent.
She's going to have my charming co-host. Okay, my charming assistant. All right. Good night, everybody.
Have fun.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, JayPee.
Be safe.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Several federal gatherings make it ring in my ears, bringing tears over the years. People stop believing, achieving, feeding the whole land in the end. The pretenders pretend and warriors feel sorry. Teaching